What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bringing you another album review, and this time we've got a very hot release for you to check out. If you know this band, you're not going to be disappointed whatsoever. But yeah, we're going to be reviewing the new Trivium album entitled What the Dead Men Say. This is released under Roadrunner Records in 2020. Now, as you know before, I've reviewed Trivium on this channel and also talked quite a lot about them over the years, and it's not a shame to say that they are one of my all-time favourite bands, and a band that has grown exponentially in their career, as becoming one of the go-to bands for most metalheads, if you ask me. I mean, their discography has been incredible. They've had some hit and misses, like misses would obviously be, for me, The Crusade and Silence in the Snow. Now, The Crusade being my least favourite album, I just don't think it has quite as much character as any of the other albums. And the Silence in the Snow, I just thought it lacked so much in that album. But the pros of it were definitely very well highlighted. I mean, his clean vocals on that album were incredible, if you ask me. But everything else that they've done over the past couple of years has been across their career has been incredible. And yes, I am a fan of Vengeance Falls, and I know that's not considered a favourite, but I do really enjoy that album, if you ask me. But I think the highlight of their discography has to be The Sin in the Sentence, which I've done a review on this channel with me buddy Matt from Erebor. I'll leave a link down below where you can check that out. And that album, I'm not ashamed to say it, is now I would consider my favourite Trivium album and my go-to Trivium album when I want to jam out some of their material. I mean, it's got everything that I love about Trivium. It's got the melodies, it's got the intensity, it's got the riffs, and it's got the prowess. And that's one thing that I think Trivium have got a lot going for them, is the prowess in their musicianship. I mean, everything culminating into their sound just fitted so well. And I think also a big factor in that album was getting the new drummer Alex Bent, who is on this new album as well. I feel like he really opened the band in gave the band a new lease of life. I mean, I was pretty disappointed with Silence in the Snow, and Vengeance Falls and In Waves were really good albums, but I feel like there was some elements that didn't perfect them, if you ask me, whereas The Sin in the Sentence, it had the full package, if you ask me. So I had high expectations leading into this new album, and yeah, and in all honesty, I didn't actually listen to I think I only listened to one of the singles once leading up to this album, because I had a bit of skepticalness leading into it, because normally if a band writes such a good album, that you may not feel the next follow-up, even if it is just as good. You may not feel, you think, oh, it's not like that good, it's not as good as the last album, you know. That's my worry that was leading in. So I wanted to wait primarily till the album dropped, and it's fairly recently dropped, and I'm ready to give my thoughts out on this album. So it's 10 tracks and runs around 47 minutes in length. And has this album disappointed me in any way, or has it held its mark against The Sin in the Sentence? Yes, it has. And in my opinion, it is everything I wanted it to be. I didn't want an album that felt like B-sides of The Sin in the Sentence. I didn't want any just not so good versions of The Sin in the Sentence. I wanted them to grow as a band and take what they had in Sin in the Sentence and just move it forward and amp it up to another 1,000, basically. And they actually did that on this album, and I think this is Trivium at their absolute best, if you ask me. And if they can come up with something to outdo this, I'd be very fucking surprised, or even something to keep as consistent as this, because these two albums have been amazing, but this one, in my opinion, continues that flagship sound of The Sin in the Sentence on to this album. But also, when I first listened to it, the first thing I noticed was the overall production sound. Like, there is a few little things that I would change in the mixing and mastering department on the Sin the Sentence, but not for songwriting and performance-wise. There's just the mix, there's just a few little twitches here and there that I see it they could have improved on, and they have improved on it on this album. And the musicianship is still fucking strong on this album. I mean, from the minute I heard the first, it's kind of an intro track called what's it, number 9, which I believe is a reference to this is their 9th studio album. You knew straight away that the production was a lot more cleaner, a lot more bright, but it still had a lot of crunch to it, and especially when it kicks in to the actual first song, which is the title track, What the Dead Men Say, and instantly I knew this was going to be something to remember in 2020, and it is. And I honestly can't stop listening to this album. This is such an absolute masterpiece from beginning to end, from as I said, the songwriting, the production, the overall tones on this album are absolutely incredible. The lyrics are catchy as fuck, like they were on the Sin the Sentence, because that's one of the things that definitely stuck out to me, was the catchiness, the memorableness of the lyrics and the melodies on there. That this one definitely carries on that flagship factor, and it just delivers, especially on that track, and especially on the on the next song, which is Catastrophist. Yeah, that one is another one of my favourites on this album. It's an absolute powerful song, especially with Matt Heafy's vocals delivering on those chorus. It's just serenading to hear his voice. I mean, the one thing that I remember from the Sin the Sentence recording diaries, that the producer, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, wanted Matt to go back to his old style of screaming before he blew out his voice, because he felt like that's what the record needed. Whereas this one, it feels like he's definitely going for more of his newer tone, you could say, because I've been watching a lot of live footage on YouTube and stuff like that of him using that technique, and this one he's brought it forward, and it definitely seems a lot more cleaner and a lot more crisper in his vocal delivery, but it still doesn't take away from that power and melody that he is able to pull off his voice. He is definitely one of the best vocalists in metal, if you ask me, in the whole genre of heavy metal. He is absolutely fantastic, from cleans to harsh. There's just so much intensity in his harsh vocals, but then there's some moments of sorrow in his vocals as well, but they just feel so that you believe everything that he's saying word for word on this album. It's absolutely fantastic. I might as well also add the performance from Alex on this album is absolutely fantastic. He is an absolute machine when it comes to the drum department, if you ask me. His work on this album is, in my opinion, better than the Sin the Sentence, if you ask me. I mean, he delivers some really intricate grooves. He's even adding elements that he did on the last album of blast beats that really, they're not just put there for no reason. They're not just put there to just show off. They're put there for great musicality and there to make that section pop out, and that's what I love. He is a master of his craft, and his grooves are just incredible. He knows what he's doing, and I absolutely love that, and yeah, I can't question it whatsoever. And Pablo's bass tone, man, on this album is easily the best bass tone that I've heard on a Trivium album, and might be my favourite bass tone on a record so far this year, and probably this entire year when it comes to year's end. I mean, he uses, in the past 3 albums, he's used a Warwick bass. He's used to use, I believe it was BC Rich, and his tone was good, don't get me wrong, but ever since he's turned to Warwick, and me being a Warwick player myself, I've just fell in love with his bass tone. I mean, the last album was incredible bass tone, but this one, that barky clank that's on here just cuts through the mix so fine, but it gives it that sense of heaviness as well, that it really crunches through the mix very nicely. It's an unmistakable clank of a Warwick, and if you know the tone, you know the fucking tone. And quite frankly, his work as a bassist in general, he is definitely, as I said it before, one of the most underrated bassists in metal, if you ask me. He is incredibly, creates some really intricate melodies to follow the guitars and really lock in with the drums, and it's what you need from an absolute solid bass player, and I can't question it on this album. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a proper amazing tone, if you ask me. Now, Corey and Matt, we might as well talk about both of them here, because their guitar tone on this album is definitely one of the best guitar tones I've heard from a Trivium album. Like, overall, I think there's just, it just sounds very natural. It sounds very punchy, very loud, and very present in the mix. I mean, it's pretty obvious that there's been a lot of attention to detail with this guitar tone, and it really complements the vocal department, if you ask me, because Matt's vocals in general, as I said, are very powerful in general, whereas the guitar playing definitely feels powerful as well when you listen to it. But the chugs are potent in the mix. They make you feel almighty when you listen to this album. But it is such a serenade album when it comes to the leads and the melodies on here, because their melodic duo, you could say, just beckons belief, if you ask me. And I feel like they are an absolute duo together. You can't have one without the other. They are both incredible guitarists, and this album definitely shows it in the melody department. But the riffs as well, they are so well written on this album. They riff hard, and that's another thing that I liked about the Sin in the Sentence as well, and they've carried it on incredibly in this album. As I said, it just feels like a more refined character than the Sin in the Sentence. It's like they've took the elements that were best, which is like 95% of it, you know, and took that forward to this album, and then just going, okay, how can we improve on this? And they've looked at it and just writ the best material they can, if you ask me. Do I prefer it to the Sin in the Sentence? To be honest, I think it's just as good, if you ask me, and that's high praise in itself, because, as I said, the Sin in the Sentence is my favourite Trivium album. But yeah, other tracks I would highly recommend you check out, besides the title track, What the Dead Men Say, and Catastrophist, I got it right that time, is Amongst the Shadows and Stones, Bleed Into Me, Sickness Unto You, and let's see, I would definitely say Scattering the Ashes. All those tracks are absolutely amazing. I'll leave links down below of where you can check out this album, but I actually think this is an absolutely incredible album, and definitely one of the highlights so far in 2020. I think it's absolutely incredible. It's shot right up to the top of my list, because I have a list on my phone now, because I don't really use my laptop for top albums, that keeps on track of my top albums, and this one has rocketed right near the top. And for that score, for that reason alone, I'm going to give this a score of 9.5 out of 10. Absolutely amazing, and I absolutely love Trivium, and this album is definitely a staple in their discography, if you ask me. So make sure you check it out. It's out now under Roadrunner Records. Make sure you pick up a copy, and I know we're in lockdown in the UK, but I've ordered myself a copy, and I'm hoping it appears very soon, because it's an absolute jam of an album. So yeah, I'll see you until the next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.